In this video, we're going to continue looking at a couple of matches that we played in Diamond 3 in order to get to Diamond 2. Some very interesting and unique interactions that we ran into that I think you're going to want to know if you're playing Floowandereeze against the meta decks in the ladder right now. So let's go ahead and take a look at those matches. So the first one here was actually against a Labyrinth deck, and we are going first after losing 2 coin tosses in a row as linked in the previous video for those matches. We start off with a Pot of Extravagance and we change Shifter. We have to hope to unbrick with this Pot of Extravagance, but the opponent kinda had a little bit of a tell. You know, you got the Silver Castle Field, air quotes, and the Labyrinth sleeves. So there's a good chance you're on Labyrinth, and if you haven't noticed, the Unexplored Winds and the Eaglin in the opening hand, them activating Stovey Torby in response to Shifter here, you know, forcing out the Stovey Torby essentially, will force them to set the Big Welcome Labyrinth, which is actually amazing for me because now my hand is playable because this Big Welcome isn't activatable right now. And we are going to be able to activate Unexplored Winds and summon Eaglin, search Empin, tribute over the just freshly set Big Welcome and the Eaglin to bring out the Empin. But we do end up drawing into cards that unbrick our hand for us. We even have the Called By in case the opponent had Ash, but this is a conflict if you play Shifter. If they Ash, it gets banished, so we can't Called By it, which means we would get negated by Ash. So it's a bit of a problem, but thankfully the opponent doesn't have it. And by setting this card with the Stovey, they also turn off Imperm. So this is a huge benefit for us. Not only does it allow our Unexplored Winds to tribute their card, it puts them on -2, and it shuts off Imperm, so we only have to worry about Ash. So Shifter coming in clutch once again, showing that it's definitely a card to help combat the meta. So really useful stuff there. The opponent kind of realizes, yep, they not necessarily outplayed, but they're just way behind on the resource game. They're still under Shifter. We've got full combo now because of Empin, and the opponent just ends up scooping it up. So this was the rank up game to get into Diamond 2. Opening hand once again with the Eaglin, the Advent of Adventure, which is good, and double pots. This is fine. Going up against Tearlaments, and we do have evenly matched, so let's see what the opponent ends up putting up here. They go into Kit Kalos, and Kit Kalos is going to dump the Rhino Heart. So the only reason you would really do this is if you're kind of not bricked, but you've got a lot of Tearlament names, I guess, or Tearlament cards in hand that you want to discard. This will trigger your fusions in a more reliable way, and sure enough they do, pitching the Sharon. And then they're also going to get the pitch off of the Rhino Heart here, so they essentially get all 3 fusions off. The weird thing is that they end up using up their Kit Kalos here, so not milling off Kit. And my guess is this opponent probably has PTSD against, you know, milling with Kit Kalos, using Ishizu cards, and then milling, you know, other, you know, Tearlament cards from their opponent. So they're just like, I don't need to go through that, so I'm just going to set up, you know, my board here, which is pretty strong. They got King of the Swamp. They've got all 3 fusion names off now. They've got an Omni Negate in the Grapha, more or less. I mean, it's not really an Omni Negate because it's a normal Speller Trap or a monster effect, but, you know, so they can't negate like Advent of Adventure, let's say. But it's pretty much an Omni Negate. So Special Summon Negate, you know, Trap card probably, and Grapha here with only 1 card in hand. So when I look at this board, you know, when you break it down, you kind of think, if this is a Crime or a Super Poly, which is what Tearlament plays, right, for their interruptions, they only have 1 card in hand. So unless this Grapha negates and discards another Tearlament card, which given the way the opponent set up their board is likely, unless this is a Tearlament card that triggers another fusion, let's say trying to fuse with Rhino and, you know, this fusion name to go into Kit Kalos to bring another Tearlament card back to their hand, they only have 1 interruption here because a Crime requires a monster in hand to discard or send, and Super Poly requires a card to discard as well. So the Grapha obviously also requires a card to send. So with this 1 card, unless that is a Tearlament name, we only have to really worry about 1 interruption. This could be an Imperm though, so that is something to take note of, but we do have the Advent to play around it. So let's see, we're going to end up drawing for turn, draw a D-Fissure, which is super strong. We're going to go ahead and activate the Extravagance. The opponent lets that resolve. We draw absolutely insane here, Duality and the Unexplored Winds. If you watched my last 2 videos, like my last one and this one, we ran into this like Unexplored Winds and Eaglin combination, like I think 3 out of the 4 matches or something. It's actually kind of nuts. So we're going to go Battle Phase, and this is another reason why Evenly can be good. You don't always necessarily need it to resolve, especially in Floowandereeze. So we definitely want to, you know, bait out a negate here, and then our engine is enough to out the opponent's board, right? So you got to be able to see the line, and I'll show you that in just a second. So We do bait the negate, and this is the moment of truth. Is it a Tearlament card in hand? No, it's not. It's a super poly, and I'm like, that should be game, because even if this is a Sulic or an Imperm, we play around it with Advent. If it's a Crime, it's offline. If it's another super poly, it's offline. So we are totally fine. Pot of Duality reveals nothing of significance, so we're just going to go ahead and grab Trap. This just means that Empin will grab Map now. We're going to go ahead, activate Fissure, activate the Unexplored Winds, summon Eaglin, no interruption on the opponent's side. We're going to go ahead and get the Grapha off board, which is going to get banished because we're under Fissure now, and we're going to go Rotation. We're also going to be able to activate the Advent of Adventure to grab a Robina, because this Eaglin, or this Empin I said, will grab Map, so the opponent doesn't even want to see the rest of it play out. They kind of realized, yeah, I've outed their board, and they just end up scooping because they have no follow-up next turn, and we have full rotation, so that is a GG. So looking into some Diamond 2 matches, we're actually 3 wins, 1 loss, so we just need 1 more win to get to Diamond 1, but I'll probably play again tomorrow because it's getting kind of late. This match though was kind of interesting. We started with a decent hand, hoping that the Extravagance can draw us into a bird piece. It doesn't, so we just have to end up passing on D-Fissure and a set evenly matched in case the opponent sets up some board. We just have to hope we don't get OTK'd and the Fissure is enough to stop them from OTKing us, and then whatever they end up setting up, we just evenly matched for 2. And then hope to draw a bird, on our next turn here. This is what I talk about in the decklist video, where I say, Dimensional Fissure is such a good card going first sometimes that it can literally stop a lot of the decks in the format. Like Bestials need this, Tearlaments obviously, sorry, not needs this, gets beat by this because they can't send to graveyard to banish. Tearlaments get beat by Fissure. Adamancipator, which is what we're going up against here, clearly can't combo off with Fissure up because obviously Block Dragon and needs materials in the graveyard and whatnot. So the opponent here is going to summon the Guardian, which in and of itself is a pretty busted card. And just Guardian beatdown, this is old school, right? 1900 attack. This could technically beat us if we don't draw anything, right? They set 1 and pass, and I'm like, oh man, if that is an Imperm, that would really suck. So we draw for turn, and we draw Prosperity, which is like insane. The opponent didn't have Ash for the Extravagance, so I doubt they drew into an Ash, but obviously that is a possibility. Thankfully, we do resolve the Prosperity. And yeah, it looks like our next couple of draws would have been kind of dead. The Crow could have been live with the Advent here, but thankfully we do dig deep enough to get a Robina, so obviously we're taking that. And, we have to obviously play through the Guardian here, but it's fairly easy because we summon Robina. Guardian will tribute to negate and destroy. We chain Advent, so we banish our own Robina. Still negated, but at least we get a bird to hand, and because we hard drew Trap and Unexplored Winds, we're going to be able to easily play through the opponent's board. Assuming this isn't, like, again, an Imperm that will allow them to double negate, or like negate, the Imperm can negate during their turn when I try to activate Dreaming Town and summon the Eaglin, that I'll search off of the Advent. Or if this is an evenly matched and they just out a lot of my cards here now, right? So that's what we have to worry about, but we're going to have to go for it because otherwise the opponent's just going to build up a beatdown board and just beat us here. So sure enough, as expected, yep, they tribute off the Guardian, which gets banished because of Fissure, and we're going to chain Advent to get a Eaglin to hand, banishing our Robina, which is good because, summon Eaglin, get Robina back, and now we have bird rotation. We can't continue playing though during our turn, so we set the Dreaming Town and pass. And this is a small conflict with Call by the Grave. When you play cards like Dimensional Shifter and Fissure, obviously monsters aren't going to the graveyard so that you can negate them with Called By, right? So if the opponent did have an Ash, we couldn't Call By it because it would just get discarded to banished, right? We would have the opportunity to Call By it. Now that being said, if this card gets outed, then our Call By is live again, so it still has some utility, I think, to play this. And when you're going first, if you have combo and you have Fissure in hand, you may actually want to not activate Fissure right away. Because I know in the past I've said, yeah, activate Fissure, because if they Havness, they're not going to Havness with a Fissure up, right? So if you normal summon a bird. But in this instance, you actually might want to hold off on the Fissure, because if you normal summon and they have Ash, you actually want that Ash to go to graveyard so you can Call By it. And that's one of the ways you can play around the opponent having Ash, despite you having, your air quotes floodgates. I don't really consider this card a floodgate, but I guess it is. So the opponent reveals the prank kids that they revealed off Guardian, summon it, and they're going to try to link off and establish some kind of board. So as soon as they normal summon, we're going to activate Trap card because we're going to go rotation and flip that face down to prevent the link summon. Adamancipator, right? It's all monsters pretty much. So, their normal summon here is used. They have no way to extend because, they need rock monsters or Adamancipator monsters on board to special summon. We shut all that down. They're under Fissure still. So there's not really much they're going to do. And yeah, we would out the card with unexplored wins anyway. So the opponent just ends up surrendering. So yeah, they saw the Dreaming Town. They clearly didn't have Imperm here. Looking at their deck list, there was probably a Call by the Grave because they actually played no traps. So that was an easy win in the end, thanks to Pot of Prosperity getting us the bird that we needed to play.